Okay. Don't want that bleeding back to us. Wait for the commercial.
Got to get them pennies in for that advertisement. You know?
That's right.
Did Tara see the other video?
Yeah.
She did.
All right. All right, here we go, episode 2. If you're going to laugh on the microphone. Second episode of Two Guys Who Dive with Rob Wade and Robert Garza, where we talk about scuba diving mostly, but of course just about anything we want to talk about, which is why it's Two Guys Who Dive and not just scuba diving. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Those of you out there who are paying attention and actually following us, we welcome you. You can also check us out. We'll be posting things on Facebook as well. Del Rio Dive Club, as well as our own individual pages. And so just sit back and relax and share in the frivolity of two guys who dive. All right. All right, here we are. Well, here we go, episode number 2. Although actually it should have been episode number 1, considering that what really happened the first episode was sort of an accident. I just had you come over to kind of test the equipment, test the lighting and that kind of stuff. And we just sat down and just started letting it roll and broadcasting and came up with episode 1. So here we are with episode number 2. So you just got back into town.
That's right, I was in Uvalde.
Oh, what was up there?
I was taking a test, actually, at college.
I hate those things.
Yeah, tell me about it.
So what was the class in?
It's actually for a certification that I'm going for.
Oh, really? What kind?
It's a teaching certification.
I was going to say it's probably not scuba diving.
No, it's not a scuba diving certification. It's a teaching cert.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, so I kind of been craving Taco Bell, so I figured, you know what, it'll be perfect.
And I did see that you checked in on Facebook with that, and I was tempted to send you a request to bring some back with you.
You know, I would have. I definitely would have.
I think Tara and I are probably going to, after the podcast, we're probably going to go check out the new Fuddruckers that opened up. Probably be a little bit better service at this point, a little bit less traffic.
I've gone twice. I went once with Sandra and then went with Dominic not too long ago when we went to go see Underworld.
Oh, okay.
And there was like hardly anybody there. So
really?
It was.
So was the service decent then?
You know, I've come to realize that the service... It depends.
Anytime there's a pause like that, I know there's a story.
The service wasn't bad. It really wasn't bad. What it was that depending on what type of hamburger you order, that it takes longer to cook. And he ordered a buffalo burger.
Dare I ask how big this thing is?
It was... Well, the thing is, you get it in sizes. So I believe he got a quarter-pound burger. And
see, that's not bad. I mean, you get that at McDonald's or whatever.
Right. It was a quarter-pound burger, but it took them about 30 minutes to cook it.
Golly.
Yeah, we were joking. Was like they were out in the back killing the bull or the buffalo, because it just took forever. It took forever.
Wow. Was it worth the wait though?
It was actually.
Okay.
Well, he enjoyed it. I was biting small little bites on my hamburger because I had got it like 20 minutes before he got his.
Right.
So I was trying to wait. I didn't want to like finish my food and then he be the only one eating by himself. So I was kind of, pacing myself eating my hamburger. But by the time I got to it, it was kind of really cold. But it wasn't his fault.
Man.
It just took 30 minutes to cook a buffalo burger.
Golly. It's remarkable.
I told you about my 1 pound burger, right?
Why don't you refresh my memory?
First time I went with Sandy, I wanted to try the 1 pound burger, so I said, you know what, I'm gonna order it. And not knowing how big actually a 1 pound burger really looks like, it was huge. They said it was gonna take about 25 minutes to cook it. It didn't actually take that long, but when it got there, it was a monstrosity of a burger. It was huge. I had to cut it up in 4s just to eat it. But it was good. It was delicious.
Wow. Awesome. Well, I'll have to tell you our story after we get through there. I'll be honest with you. When I first got here back in '83, we'd make trips to San Antonio just like everybody else did. And one of the places I used to frequent was Fuddruckers there in San Antonio, and I loved it. Of course, the monstrous burgers, and then I could still put that stuff away without saying, okay, well, this is enough hamburger for about 4 days.
Yeah.
But I haven't been to a Fuddruckers in years, so this will be my first foray back into to that restaurant chain.
Yeah, they're all right. They're good burgers.
So, anything eventful happen on your trip to and from Uvalde? Get stopped by any cops or anything like that?
No, actually, I didn't see any until coming back. Right now, I guess since it's getting dark and all, saw a trooper parked off to the side of the road, just pitch black. I didn't see him until I actually had passed them.
Don't they normally keep some lights on?
They're supposed to, but this one was pitch black, and I think he was probably, I don't know what he was doing, eating or something, but I passed them, and then about a mile up the road, just coming into Del Rio, a trooper had a truck passed.
Okay. A big rig, or?
No, it was just a regular civilian truck.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Wow. Poor guy.
Yeah.
Cha-ching.
So what's been going on with you, Rob? Anything new? Any injuries?
Yeah,
any shots?
Not me. Not me. I was looking at our show notes. Of course, the first thing I had on the list was City of Del Rio requests local divers to assistance in removing some obstructions from the local spring.
Yeah.
Won't you share with folks how our little adventure started?
Well, I got approached by a member of the city of Del Rio, actually my neighbor. Really nice fellow, Mitch Lomas, if you're listening, hey. But, extremely nice individual, came up to me and said, hey, that he needed my help. Calls me kind of late in the evening, says, hey, I know that you scuba dive. We have some issues. We're installing a new pump for our spring, but some boulders are in the way. We need them removed. So I was like, all right, let me call my dive buddy, because I don't like diving by myself. You're not supposed to dive by yourself.
Right.
You need a buddy, especially when there's a spring involved. There's a lot of water pressure that goes into that. So having done once before, it's just not a good thing, especially when you're doing it by yourself. So I was able to finally get a hold of you, Rob. I left a voice message after several attempts to no avail. And you called me back, and you were kind of at all like, are you serious? We're going to dive spring? And I was like, yeah. So we got together. You made arrangements at your place of employment. I made arrangements at mine, and sure enough, we hit the water.
Yeah, I have to admit, when I got that call, I really thought you were pulling my leg. So I'm like, what? And you told me what happened, what caused, what the issue was. I'm like, seriously? There are boulders dropped down? Oh, and of course, I had visions of, here's the spring that feeds the water supply for Del Rio, Texas. And I'm thinking there's these big boulders that are partially blocking the stream. That thing's going to start drying up, and everybody's going to start trucking in water. And HEB and Walmart are going to be scalping prices for bottled water and something. Okay, well, this is kind of serious. And, it wasn't quite that bad, really, when we got on site.
It was interesting, though. It was cold. It was
outside.
Windy. Outside, it was cold. It was windy. But it all in all, it was really good. It was great. I really enjoyed myself.
You are not texting on the show.
I'm sorry. I got a text message from my son. He wants to know if I'm on the air.
Oh, is he gonna watch?
Yeah.
Oh,
I just need to send him the link. I don't.
There we go. Yeah.
So we'll do that here in just a sec. Anyway, but going back to the spring, it was actually very interesting. When I saw it, when we crossed over the little platform, the first thing that I thought was, if those of you have ever seen the movie Sanctum, there's a part where there's a girl, she's scaling one of the walls and gets her hair caught and falls into the water that's just springing out.
That was a bad scene.
You know, I'm looking down in this hole, and you'll see pictures of this. I think here in a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm looking down this hole, and the water's like gushing up out of the ground like that. And the first thing I tell you, Rob, is like, it reminds me of that scene from Sanctum.
Yeah.
And it was interesting.
Matter of fact, let me see if I can get some of these shots to come up while you're texting your son here. When I tried this earlier, again, this is new software for those of you who are checking out the podcast. We're still learning the ropes on the software here, so if we get any glitches or hangs in it, it's probably user error, but we'll see. So I'm going to try and bring up some pictures here. And
we froze.
Yes. I think it's because it's shifting between this screen. There we go. And there's me taking a little shot with the mobile dive center there as we were gearing up to head over to the actual site. We're pulled up behind or next to the pump house. So let me switch here. There we go. Now we were getting ready to jump in. There's Scuba Bob and all his 7mm neoprene glory there.
Yeah, that the funniest thing was, going back to when we were getting dressed and getting in the water, you see all the city employees there.
Oh yeah.
They all pulled out cameras. Every single one of the guys there had a camera.
It was pretty wild. I was like, okay, this better show up in the newspaper or something. I haven't checked. I'll be honest with you. I haven't checked the newspaper in the last couple of days to see if anything showed up.
I don't get the paper, but it was interesting because I was looking around and everybody was just waiting for us to get into the water. And they had cameras everywhere.
It's almost like, have you guys never watched like Undersea World of Jacques Cousteau or Science Channel or Discovery Channel?
It was interesting.
Here's a view standing on our where we were going to enter the water. We're underneath the main catwalk, and this is one of the support mechanisms or support girders. You kind of see the ripple effect of the how strong that spring is coming up. And then we got this shot here standing up on the steps overlooking that, and now you can see the fairly shallow pool area, and then looking into basically the mouth of the spring, you see it drops off pretty dramatically there.
Yeah, those turbines you guys see going into the water, those are the actual pumps that are actually pulling the water up and across that green tube you see at the very top left-hand corner of the picture. That it goes into a house that actually filters the water. One of the biggest things for me was like, what does the water need to get filtered? I mean, it's spring water.
Yeah.
I was actually drinking some of the water.
Well, we almost didn't have a choice because of how strong that the stream was coming out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and this is standing up on the upper catwalk, looking over the opening down to where they wanted to put this third pump, because there's For those who've never seen it, which most of you probably haven't, there's currently 2 pumps that pull water out of that spring that feed our water supply, and because we are growing, believe it or not, they needed to put a 3rd pump in there. So this is where this is standing over the precipice of that opening where they'd mount the plates. And then this is a picture of their attempt to actually lower that new pipe down in there. If you see the greenish blue part, the elbow bends to the actual deck plate, and that's the part that would actually rest on the catwalk and bolt down. And then they also have some wiring that goes to it because the sensors that check the flow and all that good stuff are run along the side of the pipe. And the idea was that they would shove this pipe down into the spring opening, bolt down the deck plate, and be good to go. Well, what they thought was going to confound the problem, confound the installation, was they had somehow knocked some boulders down to a ledge area, because it's not just like a big hole in the ground. It's got ledges and
turns.
Yeah, it's not just a big hole going straight down. They thought that those boulders were going to get in the way of this pipe getting down to the depth that it needed to.
It would have. I mean, it would have obstructed the...
True, absolutely. But little did they know, and they weren't divers, so they couldn't know, that, and this is a picture of the ledge itself, where this pipe was poised straight over, and there were where there had been until we got there and worked the issue, 2 really monstrous boulders there. What they were thinking is that once we got the boulders cleared, that they could have had a clear shot to lowering the pipe all the way. Well, even after the boulders got out of were moved out of the way, that ledge was just too high. They told us after we tried a couple of things and tried to give them some judgment of distances and lengths, etc., that they needed what was it, 20 inches?
20 inches of clearance from the bottom of the actual pump itself.
Yeah, the opening of the pipe had to have a clearance of 20 inches. And as it was, once they started lowering it down, the picture you saw previously, that is, it didn't go down much further before the opening of the pipe was only 4 inches from this ledge. And they were asking well, is there a way, how can we get it clear of the ledge? And I said, you're not going to be able to at this rate. Well, can anything be broken off the ledge? And I said, no, it's solid. And as you can see, this ledge is solid. It's not like just a shale piece of rock sticking out that you could go after with a jackhammer or something like that. So, and then what I did was I pushed myself against the wall behind this ledge, and then grabbed the opening, the lowermost part of the pipe as it was hanging down, and I literally pushed, because it was just hanging off chains off of a crane, so it wasn't like attached to anything. So I pushed the mouth of this pipe as far to get it to where it actually was off the ledge and had a clear shot to go further down. And the angle that this pipe was having to go in at, if they wanted to lower it all the way down, was like 35-degree angle. And I guess it was the contractor that said, no, this thing has to go straight down. I said, well, you're not going to get anywhere close to straight down.
That ledge has been there way longer than we ever have been, and I don't think it's going to go anywhere.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, needless to say, that they ended up, after they connected the wires, actually, because they were that confident they were going to be able to get this thing down. And they had attached all these other parts to to the elbow, etc. They were that convinced that they were going to get this puppy down there, and after we told them there's just no way you're getting from point A to point B, they had to disconnect the lines, etc., and pull this back out. So it turns out they were, before the deck plate even met, they were a good 18 inches off, and then plus they needed 20 inches of clearance from the opening in order to make this. So they were gonna, I told them, you're gonna have to cut about 4 feet off of this pipe to make it. So they were not happy campers.
Yeah, and after you left, I was actually talking to Mr. Lomas, and he had said that they had a shorter one of those pipes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but they were going to start fitting it and everything, and they were probably still going to have to cut off a little bit more off of the pipe. But they were working diligently to get it done. It was already getting dark. I was freezing.
Oh yeah,
I was
cold.
bleeding.
Yeah.
And I wanted to hurry up and go home and bring my body temperature back with a hot shower.
Yeah, it was.
The water was nice. The water was warm. It was great. Getting out of the water was the killer.
Oh, no kidding.
No, it was
kidding.
like I was in one of those city workers. It was like, is it cold? I was like, the trick isn't getting into the water.
Yeah.
It's getting out of the water. And
yeah, because it's a spring. Anybody who knows anything about springs, they're pretty much a constant temperature for the most part. And in this part of the world and part of Texas, the springs typically around here run about 72 to 74 degrees year round, and so it's comfortable, especially if you're in a 7 mil wetsuit. We were definitely both decked out for cold, and but the problem is getting out. The temperature was colder than the water, but so we were very comfortable in the water. Aside from the fact that we were working our
degrees, I think it was.
Well, I don't think it was quite that cold, but maybe with wind chill.
The wind chill was windy.
That was, yeah. I was definitely glad to have the trailer, because when we got done, trying to change out into dry clothes, being able to jump in the mobile dive center and just close the doors and just, okay, we're protected from the wind. It was just crazy. But yeah, the challenges of this dive don't, on the surface, seem to be like all that significant. You're thinking, okay, it's a spring, big whoop. We've been in springs before. Anybody who's gone up to Balmorhea State Park, which is a fantastic little trip, that's the same
It's a spring.
Yeah, it is. But it's like a swimming pool and a pond all at the same time. It's a floor wax and a whip topping. And that place is just awesome. You got a great view of the mountains, such as we have in Texas, and just a great view, and a nice camping area, and great swimming and diving, etc. But the temperature at the San Felipe Springs is really comfortable, and that pool area that you saw from the aerial shot or the above shot is fairly shallow and has a lot of hydrilla and that kind of stuff in there. So actually, you get in there, and you got to be concerned with being tangled up in all the flora that's down there till you get out over the actual opening, and then it was fine. Except, guess what? It is a spring, and it's a very powerful spring, because it does feed San Felipe Creek, and the water pressure coming out of there is tremendous.
Yeah.
I mean, you were at the end of the dive playing with some of the golf balls that were.
I didn't think you were watching.
It was hilarious.
Aside from being a spring, like you mentioned, the people need to realize one thing is I guess what people call the blue hole.
Right.
The peg pen or the blue hole or whatever they want to call it.
Yeah.
All of that water is coming from this spring.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can only imagine. I mean, we're at the mouth of this thing, and it's feeding a lot of water to a lot of people. And because it is on the golf course, there's a lot of debris, and I think a lot of some of the stuff that we saw down there was, of course, man-made stuff that was probably fell from the top. But there was a lot of golf balls down there, and things of that nature. But just to kind of talk about my experience, we were strapping one of the one of the pebbles with some straps. As my friend, one of my friends said,
"What is the Flintstones?"
One of my friends sent me a text after the dive when I was getting into my truck, and I checked. And he goes, "Are you done moving those pebbles?" Well, I had to tell him they weren't pebbles; they were like
smack them.
They were mountains. And during the course of putting one of the straps, I accidentally hit something with my hand. Didn't know what it was until the rock moved, and it turns out it was a rusted can. It had probably been there I don't know how long, maybe from the flood. Probably it got thrown in there.
Right.
And which brings me, I'll talk about my experience at the ER here in a little while. Had to go get a tetanus shot. But there was a lot of golf balls down there, and, like you mentioned there, after we were all done and everything, I actually managed to grab some off one of the ledges and was just putting them right in the center of the spring as the water was shooting up, and they were floating.
Yeah, that was hilarious. They were just kind of bobbling.
They were just turning, and and it was just so funny. It looked really cool because they were just floating in midair.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
That's how strong the pressure was.
Mm-hmm. No. It was strong enough to make you want to throw up.
Oh my gosh. Okay, see, now I get motion sickness. I'm not so bad in cars anymore. Used to when I was growing up. I really had to watch that. But as I grew up, I lost some of that. But me and roller coasters just don't get along. Or any of those kind of rides that put you upside down and twist you and stuff like that. And of course, the interesting contradiction is that, as anybody who dives with me knows, I like to dive inverted. I like to spend a lot of time upside down, and it's just good buoyancy practice, and it kind of gets you comfortable working in 3 dimensions as opposed to 2 dimensions where we typically, forward, back, left, and right. But there is in the spring, because that water is pushing you up so hard, and the way we had to work together to get straps around these boulders,
rocks,
these pebbles, and because I am a little bit smaller than you, and so my gear is a little bit tighter, I was able to fit a little bit easier, not well, but a little bit easier down further into the spring to get underneath some of these things, and I felt a little bit more comfortable, I guess, hanging there precariously underneath something that could literally crush me.
I was terrified. I was terrified when you went under that rock when we had it just dangling on a strap. I was like, "Oh, don't go down there."
It looked worse from down there, let me tell you.
And a couple of times I actually had to grab you and hold you because the pressure was bringing you up.
It was crazy. Because, I had to get inverted, and I had to kick and pull myself, claw down in to get that far underneath some of these boulders. Because it took us several tries. We'd start to get it off the ledge, and then it would move. And then because of the angle that they had to have the crane pulling, it ended up dragging them against the south wall of the spring area. And unfortunately, what that would cause is a friction against the straps, and it would pull them out of place, where we had placed them where it would be stable. Well, of course, you start dragging something against the wall, it's going to shift the load, and we dropped especially the bigger of the two. We dropped it a few times before we. What do you got here?
What is the website?
Oh, for those who don't know, and I did post it on Facebook, interrupting to plug our website. Just go to www.ustream, that's U as in uniform, stream.tv//channel, as in changing the channels, and then it's 2-guys-who-dive. So that's how you get to the website and check out the show.
Oh, I'm sorry. So as you were saying.
Oh, okay, no problem. So anyway, you get this boulder starting to move up, and then it comes loose and breaks free, and then it sits in a different position. So you have to figure out a totally different way of strapping this thing, because gravity works. And we were just fortunate that at no point that this thing, especially this bigger one, sailed on down into the opening. We made sure we were completely clear when they were starting to lift it up. But that one point.
Sometimes we had to actually hold it until the straps got all the tension, the excess pulled off.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they were going up real slow, and then all of a sudden the rock would go up real quick, and the crane operator was
not down with our meme. He just didn't have an understanding of what we were working with down there, and it really is hard to describe to folks who've never worked this issue. Oh, great! We have a commercial jumping in the middle of our show.
And look, it's T-Mobile.
Good grief!
But
that girl looks anorexic. I'm sorry.
No, but if you've never dove on anything, or especially a spring, or done work, any kind of actual physical work underwater, it's not easy by no means. Even though we were operating in only about 10 feet of water.
Right.
The conditions down there, people don't really know what we saw down there.
Yeah.
You're talking about razor sharp rock.
Oh yeah.
And considering the fact that I was not wearing any gloves, I had very minimal cuts, but I did have cuts nonetheless when I went to the ER, because like I mentioned earlier, I got stabbed by a rusted can, so I wanted to just be sure it wasn't going to play, and get lockjaw. Went and got a tetanus shot, and walked straight in there. And everything okay down there? Walked in there, and the ER doctor was like, What have you been doing? It's like, oh, I was diving, and he was like, your hands are all cut up. It looked like you were playing with Freddy Krueger or something.
It's like, really, I'm not a cutter.
I'm not a cutter. No, I'm not into the self-mutilation. But I walked into the ER and told the lady, listen, I'm a scuba diver. I was diving today. Because she asked me what the nature of my visit was, and I was real straightforward with her. I knew exactly what I needed.
Yeah.
I go, I'm a diver, was cut with a rusted can, I need a tetanus shot. Oh, you're diving right now in this weather? Yeah, I was. Okay, well, have a seat. In and out of the ER in about 27 minutes, 30 minutes, let's just round up, about 30 minutes.
That just doesn't happen here.
No, it was quick. The triage nurse was really cool. We're very professional, just real quick. Called the doctor. He came in, like, what have you been doing? And it just turns out I didn't get his name, but he said that he was a PADI instructor. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So
we have a doctor here who's a PADI instructor.
Yeah. He had an accent, and I'm not sure where he's from.
Oh.
But I'd never seen him before. But he said that he used to instruct, but he's been there, done that, and. But he's, according to him, that his certifications and everything are still up, and everything's still good.
Wow.
But he was like, hey, I totally understand. He was really cool. He goes, hey, I understand. Because most of the time you tell people, well, I'm diving in January, and they're like, are you crazy? But no, he was really cool and said, well, you got cut underwater with a rusted can. You need a tetanus shot.
Since you mentioned that, we probably should try and track down the name of this doctor, because it's really, for those who are divers or those who are interested in diving, it's really good idea to get checked out regularly anyway. But having somebody who is versed in dive medicine, which you would think that a doctor who is also a diver and an instructor at that, they would be particularly knowledgeable and sensitive to things with dive medicine. So that's definitely I think we need to pursue that, so we have that person at least a way that we can contact them and say, okay, we've got, if somebody were to have an accident, a diving accident, that we could say, okay, get to the emergency room, but you need to see if you can see this doctor because he does dive medicine. So that's good to know.
Yeah, it was interesting.
But ultimately, you got your shot, which was fun, and you came out. And
yeah. It was interesting.
Okay, real quick, because we had some folks trying to connect to the Ustream site. If you can't get it by the way we just told you for the address, just go to www.ustream.tv, and then up in the search box on the top, just put two guys who dive, and it should show up as an available channel to click on. So anyway, here I am crawling underneath these rocks, trying to get down deep enough to put straps and chains on these boulders, these pebbles, and the water pressure kept shoving me up, or if I was directly underneath the boulder, it would shove me right into the boulder, and it was very difficult. And trying to get back to the issue about the getting sick underwater.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. I mean, just we'll make it back. We'll take the long route, but we'll get.
Navigation.
Yeah, that's right. And I did it without a compass. Natural navigation. Usually when you're diving, you don't feel the wave motion unless you're pretty shallow. But once you get down past about 15, 20 feet, it doesn't matter really what the water's doing. You just don't sense that because you become part of the water, and your body is not getting the additional sensory input that if you're susceptible to motion sickness that would typically make you sick. But because the work that we were doing here put me in a situation where I was constantly pushing down, inverted, and then having to flip quickly in a tight spot right side up again to get underneath to work the straps and chains, etc. So I basically was spending a lot of time looping like this, and so at one point I just got nauseous. I was like, okay, I think I might be hurling through the regulator, which I've done before. Not in a spring, of course, but I was like, okay, I'll be looking forward to getting out of the water just so I can stabilize. And came close a couple of times.
I was looking at you. You looked
got very pale.
You looked different.
Yeah.
And I was, are you okay? And you weren't saying anything to me.
I get really quiet.
I thought you were upset, and then you were like, I'm nauseous.
Yep.
And the first thing, you remember what I told you? If you're gonna throw up on the lake.
Yeah, exactly. Don't put it in the water.
We drink this water.
Well, all sorts of other stuff's in there.
Yeah.
That's why we have a filtration system.
Exactly. There was like a wrench.
Oh yeah. There were a lot of tools down there.
If you see the video Ross got a video that I don't know if it's gonna play it, but if you look closely on the video, you'll see the wrench. It actually comes out a little bit on the video.
Yeah.
But that thing was huge, and there's just all kinds of stuff down there.
Yeah.
There was rebar.
Rebar, springs, screwdrivers.
There was a couple of broken bottles down there.
Yeah. It was like, okay, and I couldn't help but think, were guys who work for the city drinking while they're working on this? This probably would explain why the tools were down there.
With all respect to the guys at the city, I'm gonna just assume that all of that debris was brought in from the flood.
Oh, right, yeah.
But no, those guys from the city, they were very, very professional.
Oh yeah, the ones we worked with there, yeah.
Everybody that was there was really polite, very professional. I gotta give my hand,
And the contractors too.
Yeah.
And I'll just throw a shameless plug in there for, I guess it's SMP Pumps out of Lubbock, Texas. Were the contractors there working the actual pump issue itself? So, they're very professional folks.
Yeah, Jeremy Everett is the owner.
Yeah.
But he, all of the guys that were there, the city workers, the employees, and everybody there. I mean, they were there late, and they're working at all kinds of hellacious hours out there just to keep us, drinking good water. And
that's right.
It was amazing.
And so were we.
So were we, exactly.
We had a dog in the fight. I was like, okay, we better help out with this in case we're not going to get water.
there was no way I was not going to say no.
Right.
You know, I wasn't going to say no.
Right.
So it was interesting. And then they still asked us to come back to try to give them the measurements and not so much excavate the whole spring, but to give them dimensions and measurements because nobody's ever really been down there.
Yeah.
And you know, having now firsthand knowledge of that, it
shouldn't take long for as far as we can go, and that'll be interesting. Which you may be able to tell a little bit from the video, which I'll put up here in just a couple of minutes. It's not, like I said, it's not a round hole. It's more of a crevice as it goes down. But what they wanted was what they wanted us to do is, hey, can you come back and map the spring? And of course, I looked at them. I'm thinking,
we're not cut out for this.
Yeah, yeah. If you're going to actually map a spring, that's typically when somebody wants to do that. They're talking about cave diving, cave diving, cave mapping. There was a couple of Sanctum was probably one of my favorite dive movies, especially in 3D. It was just awesome. It's like you're there. I wanted to bring my regulator just to watch the movie with.
Where they were like you were. We saw it in 3D.
Yeah, exactly. You know, in that movie, they were kind of mapping a new cave, and then there was another movie that came out several months before. I forget what it was called, but they were using new sonar technology to actually record the mapping of cave system, and of course it was a science fiction type movie. And so, of course, I had visions of that, and I said, okay, we're not cave certified. I said, we can give you sketches and measurements if you need to of as far as we can go, but you know, if you want somebody to try to actually penetrate the spring and map it, you're going to have to get somebody who's trained and certified to do that. And as you'll see with the video, there really is no way. I don't care if you're an experienced tech diver. There's just no way with any kind of technical rig that you can fit too much further down than what we got. Let me see if I can throw the video up here.
Not to mention that we were talking about some serious weight.
Oh yeah.
My BC pouches were completely full to the max with all the weight they could take. Plus, I actually had to put more weight into my actual pockets, my BC pockets, just to keep me under the water. It was crazy.
Yeah. If you look at the rock wall here in this video, you can see how the water pressure has actually created sharp edges, and you're thinking this is just water, but because it pushes so
there's sand and everything that
and there's the wrench on the left side of the screen there, and you see me shining my light down how deep that goes. It still went another 30 feet as far as I could see down below. I could probably get down a little bit past where that wrench is before it starts to close up to where you can't get down any further. So the only danger there is that the water wants to push you out. And one of the points I wanted to make is when you're trying to fight that kind of water pressure pushing you back up, when you're trying to work underneath something, there's always a danger of you getting stuck against it. And in fact, and this was a learning experience for me, and let this be a learning experience for you folks out there. When you're wearing your scuba gear, you want to be as streamlined as possible. You don't want to have a bunch of things dangling. Well, because we wanted to get shots of what was going on down there, not only for ourselves, for historical purposes, but so that the city would be able to have some sort of record of what that looked like down there. I had my camera on me. It's just a simple, as a matter of fact, this is the camera, and then I have a case that makes it about 2.5, 3 times this size. And it was on a lanyard attached to a D-ring on my shoulder. So that way it was, and it's buoyant. Well, at one point, I was under one of the rocks, and the way I'd flipped around, the camera had started to float up, and it got caught in the stream, and it got shoved, wedged actually in between the boulder and the rock wall, the way it was wedged. So it was pinching, and because it was the strap, it kind of got nestled in there. And I'm inverted. And the water pressure is trying to push my mask off.
Yeah.
So I could easily see somebody getting to a point where they just panic in that situation because it's uncomfortable enough to be diving upside down. It's even more uncomfortable when you're upside down and you don't have a choice. You can't turn right side up. The amount of space that was there, the amount of water pressure that was there was so much that there was no way I could turn myself right side up. And I couldn't even pull myself against the pressure enough to take the slack off the lanyard that was then holding up against, pinned up against the between the boulder and the rock wall. So what that meant was I'm keeping myself calm. That's one thing I've cultivated very well, is ability to keep calm in a bad situation. Although I could easily have given in to that at that point. So I was methodically thinking, okay, problem solutions here. How can I solve this? How much do I want to continue trying to pull myself against the stream to free up enough, get enough slack in the lanyard to my camera that I could get the camera loose? Because I could not actually, I could follow the lanyard. You waving at your family?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. I could follow the lanyard up as it disappeared between the stone and the wall, but I could not actually grab the camera. So I thought, okay, how much longer do I want to try and do this, or do I want to whip out either my dive knife, which I always dive with, and you always dive with, and every diver should always dive with, or I could also pull out my EMT shears, which typically those things can cut through seat belts.
Or just reach down and grab that broken bottle that was down there and just...
Oh, yeah, yeah, so I could go visit the emergency room like you did. Yeah, that's a good idea. So I was contemplating what I want to do there. So I was only going to give myself just a couple more minutes to try and work the camera free. Fortunately, I did. I mean, worst case scenario, if I'd cut the lanyard, hopefully would have then floated on up, free from its side, and it would just be bobbing up at the surface, and I'd be free. So, like I said, I wasn't in any point of a panic, but I could easily see how an inexperienced diver, somebody who dives once a year, if that, saying, "Yeah, sure, I'll dive the spring," and you get yourself in some serious trouble.
Oh yeah, I don't recommend anybody who is a novice diver to attempt diving a spring like that.
Yeah.
Just the current was just crazy.
Yeah, it was, but it was impressive. It was kind of, and again, it was neat to see a feature of the city that most folks don't get to see, even divers.
Yeah.
So that's two of the springs for Del Rio that we've been diving on.
It was kind of funny when you said, "There's no way I'm not going to document this. This is way too cool."
Yeah.
And that was funny. And then I'm like, and I was thinking actually to myself whether or not they were going to allow us to take pictures, because it was interesting. And then we get there, and like I mentioned earlier, all the city workers all pulled out these huge cameras and cell phones, and they were just waiting for us to just get in the water. It was really funny.
Even the contractor was.
The contractor was there taking
breaking
pictures.
out the cameras.
Yeah,
was like, wow.
it really was pretty cool. But needless to say, my hands took a beating. Yeah, don't dive a spring without gloves, guys.
But yeah, absolutely. If you're going to do any kind of working dive, always bring the appropriate safety gear. Now, for recreational divers, most of the places that you go to where there's coral, etc., most of those dive operations will tell you, they will forbid you to dive with gloves, because if you have gloves on, you're more likely to reach out and touch stuff that you're not supposed to. So they want to discourage that. But if you're going to be doing something where you anticipate you're going to be effectively working, wear some sort of protection.
Yeah, or suffer the same fate I did, a trip to the ER,
Yeah.
with, for a tetanus shot.
But of course, that's the correct thing to do. And it was a good thing I had the trailer, the MDC, because I have it decked out with everything that's necessary. I got I got the O2 kit, got the first aid kit, which we took advantage of to treat your wounds interim. So
one of the cool things is that we are instructors, CPR instructors, so I was able to provide first aid for myself.
Right. That's it. Emergency first responder, self-aid. As a matter of fact, any of our Air Force folks out there are probably quite aware of having to go through the first aid and buddy care type stuff. So, just take that up to the next degree, and that's what we're certified to do. But, knowing, how to control the situation, control the event, control the scene, and applying effective first aid and just move on.
Yeah, I got to do a shout out to my wife Sandy and my son Brandon and Aiden, who are watching right now at home. Hi, how y'all doing? I want to say hi to you, Robert.
That's right. Y'all are, you got a famous dad and husband here, so hopefully he'll even be more famous. We'll see what happens if we can get more followers out there. So as let's see, wow, it's already a quarter till.
How time flies when we're talking.
Oh, that's actually further along than that. Let's hit a couple other notes that I put together that we could talk about. I've been noticing that companies like Scuba Diving Magazine, I've seen a couple other like Scuba Board discussions, etc., talking about some folks are starting to suggest that we should have mandatory as part of your certification or diving mandatory alternate or redundant air systems. For those who are uninitiated, we're talking about what we call a pony tank, or there's a company out there that creates a self-contained redundant system called Spare Air, which I actually use. My wife and I both use. And of course, the argument is for making that a requirement is that a lot of people don't pay attention to what their primary gear is doing, and so having that backup and knowing how to use it should be a requirement. And then the argument against it is that we receive, as instructors, we give everything you need to dive safely. And we teach you how to make sure you never come up with less than 500 PSI in your tank, which should be more than enough for you and your buddy to make it to the surface. We teach all the skills, and it really comes down to, are you practicing those skills regularly? Are you exercising those skills? Are those skills ready and available to you, for you, if you ever ran into a situation?
I was kind of surprised when we went to get our visual and tank inspection certification up in Killeen with C&J Divers.
Yeah.
It was kind of interesting his outlook on the alternate air, the spare air, little tanks like that.
Right.
I know that you dive with one, and he was really quick to say they're no good. We don't use them. They're and I know that you kind of like clenched your teeth a little there.
I did.
You're like, but I guess he has his ideas about that, and I think they're good. I personally don't dive with one, but then again, I don't dive by myself.
Right.
And a couple of years ago, I actually did have that incident.
Yeah.
To where you actually had to give me your alternate air because I was actually out of air.
Right.
Long story. Maybe we'll talk about that one in the next cast. But it was kind of interesting, but you actually got to keep your skill set up. But
yeah, that's important. I see the case that people make for suggesting that extra bit of insurance while diving is important to have. And I certainly, when I'm talking to students or other divers, I suggest it's a good idea to have something like that. Not necessarily a spare air, but something like that. And there's a number of good reasons, but I don't think I would ever advocate it as a must, because I think that the case is a good one to say that if you are irresponsible enough of a diver to not keep all the necessary skills that help protect you from getting into a problem, that provide for you a buffer, a safety net, if you will. What makes anybody think you would be any more responsible just because you had a spare air or a pony tank on there? You would you would dive to the edges of what you practice. So, I would not ever advocate that as being a requirement, but I certainly see the value of it. I practice with my spare air. I go down and I will actually whip that thing out because it's easy to use, and I will intentionally use it to get to the surface. The one that I have is a 3 cubic foot one, which isn't a lot, but even from 100 feet, I can do a series of staged, controlled emergency swimming ascents to get to the surface with it and still have air left. I don't feel panicked or rushed. But as with everything else, you've got to have your skill set down and your confidence in what you're doing so that you don't panic easily. So that whatever it is that you're using, if you're having to go use the CESA, the Controlled Emergency Swimming Ascent, or you're using the spare air or redundant bottle, you're in control. You own the process. So it's a good idea to have something like that if you can afford it, but always dive within your skills. Always dive with a buddy.
Right.
Just a real quick tech segment for the first episode, our accidental episode, we talked about smartphones, that kind of thing, and I saw, and because I thought this would be of particular interest to you, I did see that Google announced that they have now integrated their Google Sync to work with Windows Phone. So now you can choose up to 25. I don't know who would have 25 calendars, much less 25 Google calendars that they're managing. I'm like, what is your life like that you've got 25 calendars? But you can actually sync up and choose up to 25 calendars to sync with your Windows Phone. I'm like, that's insane.
that is crazy. You got to be a very VIP.
I'm telling you, how important are you that you've got all that?
I mean, I consider myself an important person, but I don't think I'm.
You're important in the dive community.
Oh,
here.
thank you. Sorry, you.
Appreciate that. Okay, we're just about to wrap up here. But what I did want to throw in a real quick discussion is, what kind of do you have any thoughts as to some maybe regular segments we'd want to include as part of as the last 10 minutes or the last 15 minutes of the program? Okay, we'll always talk about the newest dive tech or something like that. Any segments that you think would be kind of fun to include? Not a clue.
Not a clue. Speechless.
Don't know.
I don't know right now off the top of my head.
Okay. Well,
but if anybody out there wants to kind of throw something on, shoot us an email or post something on the dive page website on Facebook, and we'll definitely talk about it. We'll bring it up if there's something out there that you guys want to know or hear about, or just have any questions in general. Just go out and throw them out there.
Yeah, check out our Facebook page, Del Rio Dive Club. If you just go to Facebook and then start typing in Del Rio in the search, I think it's going to be just about the first thing that shows up. If not the very first, it's going to be way up there at the top. But just type in Del Rio Dive Club and you'll find it.
Yeah. You guys want to dive or do anything? We're up for a dive at any time.
Yep, absolutely. We want to our big thing about the club, which doesn't see a lot of activity, unfortunately, because it's difficult when you have such a limited dive operation, and we've lost our last of the two dive shops here. Makes it more challenging to get folks involved, but we're going to do what we can to build up the dive community and let folks know that, guess what? There's diving in Del Rio, Lake Amistad. I mean, we get the shocked look from people every time we mention there's diving here.
Yeah, we have one of the biggest lakes in Texas. Of course, there's diving here.
Yeah. Now, a lot of the best sites are boat accessible and not so much shore accessible, but
we got means if we really wanted to.
Yeah. We try to keep, stay good friends with folks with boats. We've got a couple of folks that have like big pontoon boats, that kind of thing.
Look, they interrupted you again. We're on the T-Mobile commercial.
Of course. Yeah, what is it with T-Mobile? At least they're starting to show the Windows Phone commercial, the Windows phones in there, especially the Lumia, which it's a pretty awesome phone. And there it is right there.
Hold on, I think I'm going to chuck Windows Phone.
I'm
getting nauseous.
Yeah, right.
I'm getting nauseous here.
Nice. Okay, so, with nothing else to talk about this episode, we are going to wrap this one up for this evening. We appreciate any of those who have taken the time to sit down and watch our podcast. We'll try to figure out how we can make these available for download later if you're actually interested. So, in the meantime, we will see you next week for another episode of Two Guys Who Dive. So, good night, everybody.
We'll
have a great day.